Hi everyone, Blind Dweller here. Happy New Year to you all. The subject for today's video is a little different from what I normally do. It's something more specific that I've always been heavily interested in for as long as I can remember. Ever since I was young, I've been drawn like a magnet to masks from cultures all around the world, each with their unique designs, colours, shapes, and at times often surreal, uncanny, and strange appearances. I guess in a way you could say I found some of them to be a little scary when I was young. However, as I grew older, I would come to learn more about the wonderful and ancient craft of mask making, as well as the many fascinating legends, myths, and meanings behind them. So in the end I decided, you know what, I'm just going to do a video on some of these bizarre and beautiful masks that have inspired me over the years with you guys today. I'm certainly no anthropologist or mask maker myself, but I like to think that this channel is wide open for exploring and discussing all kinds of art forms. And make no mistake that there is always much we can learn from different cultures, perspectives, and walks of life. From alien looking masks made of mud, to masks literally made of human skulls. It goes without saying that the sometimes unsettling feeling we get from looking at a mask isn't just coincidental. As you'll see in this video, invoking fear or apprehension from whoever views it is sometimes absolutely intentional. And speaking of masks, it goes without saying that when you're exploring the internet, it's absolutely essential to mask our data and identity for many potential fraudsters out there, which is completely doable with the help of today's video sponsor, NordVPN. NordVPN has proven to be a perfect match for me when it comes to protecting my personal information due to its double encryption, which allows me to stay hidden online and have the full benefits of anonymity, allowing me to do so on as many as 6 of my devices. Now, if data encryption sounds confusing or complicated, I completely get that. I was put off getting a VPN for the exact same reason. I'm not an expert in these things by any means. However, that's what makes NordVPN such a fantastic choice to get started, as it's extremely easy to use, not bogging you down in technical jargon that only tech-savvy people understand. But probably the biggest lifesaver of NordVPN is its speed. If I don't have fast broadband speed, I can't get as much work done, and I'm a very grumpy boy. But Nord can actually boost your internet browsing speed by connecting to one of 5,500 servers worldwide for not only improved speed, but allowing you to connect to a server in another country to access region-locked content on your favorite streaming service. Simply head to nordvpn.com/blinddweller to get the 2-year plan with an exclusive deal, plus 1 bonus month absolutely free. Don't forget it's risk-free with NordVPN's 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video, and with that said, welcome to another video everyone. Today we explore some mysterious masks, what they mean, and the significance to their makers. First up, I'd like to take you to a land that for many years instilled fear into curious travellers until as recently as the 20th century. A rugged landscape of dense jungles and towering mountains that remained virtually untouched by the outside world for many generations. I'm of course talking about Papua New Guinea, a country that lies east of Indonesia and north of Australia, southwest of the Pacific Ocean. Papua New Guinea in itself is a fascinating country consisting of 1,400 islands and over 1,000 native groups speaking over 800 different languages. Many tribes that can be found in these lands wear vibrant and colourful face paint, completed with headdresses made of bird of paradise feathers, with some languages that arguably even replicate the birds around them, such as these highland villagers who communicate with a repetitive and hypnotic call. What made these lands so notorious for explorers from the West for so long, however, was the resilient and often extremely hostile response to those who attempted to venture or colonize these regions. Often an overly curious explorer would be met with the tip of a spear or a poisoned arrow, and as recently as a few decades ago, acts of cannibalism within these tribes was considered to be a perfectly normal practice, such as the tribe known as the Angu or Enga, located along the plains of the Iseki River, who for centuries would preserve the dead by mummifying their bodies, displaying them high up on the cliff face known as the Sacred Rock, overlooking their village, like quiet sentinels watching and guarding the people below. It's important to understand that many tribes that live in Papua New Guinea today are descended from fearless warriors. As beautiful as the country may appear, it has never known a time without conflict. Often disagreements and conflicts between neighbouring tribes are still very much prevalent today, which is certainly no exception with the particular tribe I want to discuss for this video, who centuries ago invented a rather ingenious way of protecting themselves from an enemy tribe. Located in the village of Goroka in the Eastern Highlands province of PNG near the Asaro River is the Asaro tribe, who years ago conceptualized the existence of a mysterious Asaro mudmen. The majority of people who dwell in the highlands of PNG believe in supernatural beings and spirits that live in the sky, the caves, the forests, and the rivers that constantly intervene with the world of the living to either protect or ward off misfortune to those who worship them, making these many spirits both highly respected and also heavily feared amongst these tribes. Although there are many various versions of the story behind the creation of these strange mud monsters that invoke such spirits, it's famously believed that many years ago the Asaro were under attack and outnumbered by a nearby tribe. According to the New Atlantis documentary called The Ambassadors of the Jungle, link in the description, one of the ancients had a dream of terrifying, pale grey spirits warding off the enemy. That same evening, the Asaro covered themselves in clay and mud from the banks of a river, although they would refuse to cover their faces, believing the mud to be poisonous. And so instead, as a result, the first mud masks would come into existence. In the low light of dusk, the enemy tribe would see grotesque and insidious beings emerging slowly from the forest and the banks of a river directly towards them. Each creature is unique with over-exaggerated features and notable characteristics, such as fangs made of pig's teeth or hollow bamboo sticks made to appear as sharp talons. Looking upon these alien creatures and fearing that the angered spirits were approaching them, the enemy tribe fled and the Asaro people was saved. Ever since this legend, the Asaro mudmen have been considered sacredly important to the local people. Still to this day, the locals honour and thank the spirits for saving their land by recreating these strange supernatural beasts of mud. So there was no way I could make a mysterious mask video without talking about this particular topic. If you're a fan of anime or Japanese culture in general, you are probably already very familiar with no masks. They have become somewhat iconic in many forms of media and pop culture over the years. I've even seen them appear in various tattoo design ideas. But what exactly do some of these beautifully and delicately crafted masks represent exactly? To briefly offer a bit of background, no theatre and no dance is a form of performance art that is widely believed to have been first introduced to Japan from China during the 8th century. The earliest form of no theatre was known as sangaku, a sort of street performance art consisting of acrobatic stunts, puppet shows and even magic. Though as the centuries progressed, so did Japan's own influences within the art form, making it a sacred and integral part of Japan's history and culture. The now famous no masks first came to fruition during the period known as the Kamakura era, a time period most famously known for the emergence of a samurai, and a time when no theatre was regarded more as a sort of comedy show. There are roughly over 450 different kinds of no masks, of which many designs date back to as far as the 1100s and represent nearly countless characters and themes. One such notable mask is known as Hanya. It is a mask that represents a maid who became a demon due to a jealous, obsessive and vengeful heart. Although appearing as a terrifying monster at first glance, it could also very easily be seen as tragic and sad, It is common for Noh plays to tell stories of heartbreak, betrayal, and sorrow, of which the story of Hanya is certainly a prime example of displaying complex emotions of both sadness and torment. It also offers slight optical illusions to the viewing audience to display both of these emotions. When the actor is wearing the mask and looks ahead, the mask appears terrifying and demonic. However, when the actor looks down, the mask almost completely transforms into that of a tortured creature, crying or weeping. Another widely recognized Noh mask is named Komote, literally meaning small face. The Komote mask often represents a naive young woman, or sometimes a supernatural being. Although it is commonly regarded as a creepy mask with an unsettling expression, it actually serves to convey the notion of innocent beauty. Usually the mask is carved with the same exact look and features, such as being painted white, with shaved and painted eyebrows, neatly combed hair, and black dyed teeth. One important thing to note about Noh theatre is that it has been traditionally performed by male actors only. As a result, they would play the roles of both men and women, as well as the spirits from those of the dead. This would lead to significant details in the costumes of these actors. For example, when actors play men who have not died, no mask is worn and they expose their own face. However, when they play other characters such as women or dead people, a no mask would be worn to represent them. And often such supernatural characters would be vengeful ghosts or those who have come back to possess someone, which could in a way play a part in why a lot of these masks have garnered such an unsettling and haunting reputation. You can look no further than the continent of Africa for some of the most ancient and diverse forms of art and music, with over 3,000 different ethnic groups speaking more than 2,100 different languages. Cultures across this vast landmass truly do come in all shapes and sizes. In turn comes many different spiritual faiths and religions, which over the centuries has defined some of the cultures that reside in every corner of Africa. For example, in the western region of Africa, within the two neighbouring countries of Liberia and the Ivory Coast, live the ethnic group known as the Kran, who also go by other names such as the Wee or the Gere, known for their fascinatingly beautiful and intricate masks that they create, which are not only integral to their spiritual beliefs, but also play a major role in the functionality of their politics and their laws. Each mask that resembles wisdom, justice, satire, and so on is created to serve a specific purpose or to honour certain spirits. The villagers of the Gere believe in a world that remains out of reach of the living, in a form known as bush spirits, that watch over and maintain the stability of the tribe. In order to appease these spirits, every single action of the tribe, whether it be cultivating a new field of crop, or even simply venturing outside of a village, must be done so with prior consent and approval from the ethereal realm. Each of these masks belong to a different family, both heavily feared and respected by the villagers, some of which are very old and only venture out of their sacred dwellings once every 50 years for special occasions. The characteristics of the masks are also significant, often resembling spirits seen in visions and dreams. It's traditional for female masks to be designed as less imposing and more beautiful than the male masks, used for more ritual and entertainment purposes. Whilst on the other hand, the male masks are often more ferocious looking and used for more social political purposes. Before initiated members of a village are to wear them, complex ceremonies and animal sacrifices are to be carried out. Once done, an initiated member wears a mask and an elaborate costume, and essentially goes into a kind of trance, completely cutting themselves off from the world of the living in order to harbour the spirit of a mask. The wearer of a mask dances, jumps, and performs acrobatic stunts in the village square, urged on by the clan chiefs to do something specific. The exaggerated movements of a mask wearer are observed in awe by the surrounding villagers, genuinely believing that only beings from another world can perform such stunts. In another ethnic village within the Ivory Coast lives the tribe known as the Dan or the Yakuba, who are a heavily spiritual clan with very strict procedures. For example, they are renowned for the building of a magical lianas bridges. These structures are made completely out of lianas vines from a nearby forest with no bolts, nails, screws or ropes, just with incredible weaving and architectural skill. These bridges appear fully built after a single night of construction. The villagers must remove their shoes whenever crossing one of these sacred bridges, and the construction is done completely in secret by the initiated. It is not unknown for anyone who dares enter the area of construction without prior consent to be killed on sight, making these bridges incredibly respected and mysterious to those who are not in the secret society, believing them to be built by the very spirits of the forest themselves. The Dan, of course, also honour the spirits with masks. One particularly venerated mask is known as a Kuya Geblen Geble. The wearer of the mask wears stilts, showing off impressive balance and skill when jumping and dancing, to amplify the power of its magic and domineering presence to the onlookers. The mask itself is relatively simple, with minimal features, but it wears an elaborate headdress with vivid colours, each holding a significant meaning, allowing the villagers to know the mood of a mask on the day it emerges. Red signifies power, white serenity, and black for ferocity. This mask represents a spirit of justice, making it particularly revered among the Dan. Whenever there is a dispute between a number of individuals within the community, the mask is called upon to perform and settle the conflict. Each decision the mask makes is final and respected, always followed without question. Again, only the carefully chosen members of the initiated within these West African tribes are allowed to touch the masks, with any accidental contact with them being carefully avoided. Furthermore, none of the relatives and friends of the initiated should know that they are a wearer or guardian of a mask. Once the performance of a mask has concluded, and it is to be returned to its secret dwelling place within the village, further obligatory ceremonies and sacrifices must be performed, and the mask must be hidden away within a strict time frame, normally no longer than 2 to 4 days. This picture shows one of 8 masks made from a real human skull discovered at a temple in Tenochtitlan, Mexico, over 3 decades ago. These masks are remnants from one of the world's most well-known ancient civilizations, the Aztec Empire. Much like Japan and their no theatre masks, there is so much fascinating history to explore when it comes to the Aztecs and their culture. But again, I'll briefly summarize some background in order to better understand the purpose of these morbid skull masks and where they might have come from. The Aztecs were an old civilization that dominated, ruled, and thrived in and around the Valley of Mexico more than 700 years ago, until eventually meeting their doom and subsequent decline at the hands of the Spanish conquistadors under the rule of Hernan Cortés in the 1500s. As well as being a vibrant and flourishing civilization for many years before the arrival of the Spanish, they also became notorious to historians and archaeologists alike for their regular partaking in human sacrifice. Human sacrifices included beheading, removal of the heart, throwing people into fires, and even fights to the death, which was certainly no exception for the citizens of the ancient city of Tenochtitlan, which once stood as the capital of the Aztec Empire on an island located in the Valley of Mexico up until their eventual decline. The old temple located there, known as Templo Mayor, meaning the Great Temple, is where the 8 mysterious skull masks were discovered, and it once served as a religious and political epicenter of the city. According to Forbes.com and their article titled Mystery of Morbid Aztec Skull Masks Solved by Archaeologists, this temple was dedicated to Huitzilopochtli, the Aztec god of war and the sun. Archaeologists have found abundant evidence of human ritual sacrifice there, suggesting this practice was key to Aztec religion. Quote, The masks in question are decorative headpieces made from human skulls that would have been worn over the face or as part of a headdress. The masks have been heavily modified to create interesting looking objects. The back portion of a cranium was removed. They were decorated with dye, and some had inlays in the eyes and shirt blades placed in the nose. It would be a group of anthropologists led by Corey Ragsdale at the University of Montana who would thoroughly investigate these skull masks in order to determine their purpose as well as the age and gender of the skulls to provide more insight. What Ragsdale and his team discovered was that the skulls were all made from males between the ages of 30 and 45, and that these people had no evidence of dental disease or other nutritional stress. That is, they were healthier than normal for this culture. When they compared the dental records of the skulls to that of other known groups in the area, the researchers theorized that the men who were made into skull masks were likely from various locations outside the city, meaning that these were quite possibly captured men brought to the temple to be sacrificed and processed. The Aztecs were able to experimentally reproduce the cut marks and drill holes on the skulls using a stone tool technology that would have been available at the time. From their findings, the researchers concluded that, quote, the skull masks were created using the skulls of captured or defeated warriors that were acquired from conquered towns or the executed nobility. There is even a theory that it's possible one of the skull masks represented the defeated king of Tolokan, who is known from historical records. Although it still remains virtually impossible for experts to determine just how many people met such a terrible fate within the Aztec Empire, historical sources still suggest that at least 20,000 people were sacrificed in this manner at Tenochtitlan, the majority being captives from battle or payment of tributes, indicating just how much ferocious power and how much of a fearsome reputation this civilization once had until their inevitable demise in the 16th century. Finally, let's make our way back to Asia, this time to the realms of Bhutan, Nepal, Tibet, and India, to look at the beautiful and mesmerizing masks worn within what is known as the Cham dance, a lively masked and costume performance associated with the Buddhist tradition known as Vajrayana. Buddhism isn't really a religion that follows a specific set of traditions or strict guidelines system. Instead, it comes from a time where writing and literature was not all that common, and so Buddha's teachings were simply passed down via word of mouth from his monks and followers through generations, rather than all being written down. That is until roughly 454 years after the Buddha's death that the closest and earliest thing we have to a complete and comprehensive collection of Buddhist scriptures, known as the Pali Canon, were finally written down. But even the Pali Canon, considered to be the closest and most direct thing we have to the Buddha's own words, again follows a specific form of Buddhism known as Theravada. In other words, Buddhism is practiced in a way that is often entirely dependent on the culture and what has been taught or transferred over time to that region. From Sri Lanka all the way to Japan, Buddhism is not taught or practiced in one clear-cut way, which is why so many variations of statues, art and architecture depicting the Buddha and his teachings exist throughout the world. Discussing who the Buddha was and what Buddhism is exactly could probably make a 10-hour-long video, to be honest. So let's get back on topic of this particular tradition of Buddhism known as Vajrayana and what the strange masks of its dance and performance represent. To put it briefly, and sort of imperfectly, if there was one overarching goal that most Buddhist traditions all share, it is to achieve what the Buddha most often represents: pure inner peace and enlightenment through meritorious compassion for the world and others. The word Buddha in itself means the awakened one, someone who has achieved optimal awareness and seen things as they really are, and in so doing has achieved nirvana, a transcendent state in which there is neither suffering, desire, nor sense of self. According to the Vajrayana beliefs, this path to enlightenment is fraught with many ill temptations, distractions, obstacles, and discouragement. This is where the Cham dance and their masks come into play. Despite their threatening appearance, which early European anthropologists refer to as devil masks, they actually serve a very positive purpose. These masks are traditionally believed to embody wrathful, protective deities who inspire fear and terror into the hearts of evil forces. These deities are often believed to remove the terrible obstacles on the path to enlightenment and nirvana, and so the masks are regarded to provide tranquility to the devotee and free them from the delusions of a material world. According to Tibetan beliefs, they may symbolize supernatural forces that are present both within the self and the external world. Their terrifying appearance may be an allusion to the nature of the material world that masks the ultimate reality. The masks and the Cham dance were created in honor of the ancient Buddhist guru known as Padmasambhava. Originally from India, he may have taught Vajrayana Buddhism in Tibet in the 8th or 9th century, solidifying his status to many followers as the first to bring the religion to Tibet, as well as the first Tibetan Buddhist temple. Some also say the first vision of these terrifying yet protective deities came to another guru in a dream by Padmasambhava in the 13th century CE. According to an article I came across on Map Academy, again link in the description, Cham masks are made according to precise instructions from a variety of Buddhist scriptures and again may have regional variations. One manufacturing method involves preparing a clay mold and applying several layers of cloth to it using a mixture of glue and dry soil. When the glue is dried, the clay mold is removed and the surface of a mask is painted or decorated as required. Paper mache, metal and cotton strips may also be used to make the masks, especially in the case of animal masks, like those representing the Tibetan snow lion. Some masks may have marks around the mouth, signifying leftover food or saliva, or the remnants of gorging on flesh, blood and intestines. Some may also consist of an elaborately decorated representation of a skull. For example, the faces of wrathful deities such as Chogyal Yum may be surmounted by diadems featuring up to 5 human skulls. Each skull represents a negative affliction that can prevent one from reaching enlightenment, such as ignorance, jealousy, pride, attachment, and anger, which are believed to be sort of transformed by the Cham dance into more positive virtues, such as wisdom, accomplishment, commonality, appreciation, and understanding. I was surprised to find that despite being masks, they are often not well suited for wearing. As well as being quite large, Cham masks are usually very heavy and bulky, making them difficult to see through or wear for long periods of time. Often they have sharp edges, making the dancers have to wear padded caps or folded towels covering the forehead or the sides of the face in order to prevent any chafing and cuts. Almost a test of resilience for the dancers, which in itself is deeply rooted in Buddhist beliefs in order to achieve the ultimate goal. Sadly, as is the case for many other ancient Buddhist practices, many traditional construction methods for Cham masks are preserved only in oral histories today, due to the destruction of what little text existed during the Chinese invasion of Chairman Mao and his Cultural Revolution of Tibet in the 20th century, with only a few ancient Cham masks still existing in various monasteries. Thank you for watching this video. Again, I know it is a little different from what I normally cover on this channel, but I hope you found it interesting regardless. I think this is easily something I could do a part 2 video for, so if you enjoyed it and if you have any suggestions for other strange and wonderful masks that I can talk about in future, please let me know in the comments below. Before I go, it's that time again of course for Artist Corner. Here I get to share some artwork sent in by one of my viewers, and today's featured artist is Michael Makemore, a 38-year-old artist who I met on Instagram from Ontario, Canada, who is now currently living in England. Michael started drawing as a kid, like most kids do. However, upon turning 16 and when attending high school, drawing became a regular and important part of his life, constantly doodling in his sketchbook. After pursuing art further in his later education, Michael has now worked for 15 years in animation and trades art design, previously working for the likes of Disney, Warner Brothers, and Lego to name a few. Up until 2020, his preferred medium was inks, but now has become completely devoted to painting, using mostly acrylics. His main influences include Frank Frazetta, Adrian Smith, Alan Lee, John Ho, and Paul Bonner. As you could probably tell from his highly detailed and action-packed imagery, Michael has an incredible imagination, which he displays so wonderfully in these works. He tells me that fantasy, ancient history, and science fiction themes are constantly on his mind, and undoubtedly those interests permeate in his work. I think he's amazingly talented and deserved a spotlight today. It would mean a lot to me if you can show him some support by heading over to his Instagram and explore more of his work, via the username you see here or via the link I left below. If you're an artist watching and you potentially like to feature in a new video, I'd love to hear from you. Please send your artwork and a bit about yourself to blinddweller@gmail.com or feel free to send me a message on Instagram. Please also be sure to join my Blind Dwellers Art Club on Discord, which I've also left a link for below. And as always, a big thank you to my top tier channel members and Patreons. Dave MC, Booty Magic, Mullowtail, Calvin Kai, John Allen, The New Ongoing 24, Akaiza, Jose Luis Ordonez, Fernando Achicaro, Chris Collins, Fruit Dookie, Blaine B, Charlie Sanchezi, Port Perea, Classy Chassis, Ken B, and Carol H. If you'd like a shout out or to see my videos early or just want to support the channel in any way, please consider hitting the join button or head to my Patreon page via the link I've left below. That's all for me today then, my friends. See you in the next video soon. Keep being creative and bye for now.